Iran was not bluffing when it said it was going to raise the price of oil to over $200 a barrel in retaliation to the US-Israeli war of aggression, and its latest move changes everything. 5 Air Force refueling planes have been hit by an Iranian ballistic missile strike at the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. Air Force has confirmed this to the Wall Street Journal, but of course, CENTCOM has not commented. And of course, we might hear in the next hours to days that these refueling tankers were subject to some kind of accident, some kind of malfunction, as we've seen over and over again with the USS Lincoln, the USS Gerald Ford, of course, those F-15 fighter pilots that were downed, 3 of them, over Kuwait. We will hear some excuse, but nonetheless, Iran has taken credit for this, and this is a major escalation in this oil war now that Iran is waging against the United States following the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The Donald Trump administration has attempted to spin events right now away from Iran's retaliation, which has been historic in nature, toward its own so-called powerful strikes on Iran. And the most latest of these is its strike on Kharg Island. So Donald Trump has announced that Kharg Island has been obliterated, the crown jewel of Iranian oil exports. Donald Trump says was hit hard. It was only military installations that were hit, though, and oil infrastructure was spared. And why is this? Because the Trump administration is incredibly afraid of these rising oil prices, which now hover around $100 a barrel for crude. And this comes as the United States has announced that 2,500 to 5,000, I believe the Wall Street Journal confirmed 5,000 of a Marine Expeditionary Force unit will be sent via Japan to the Middle East in what many believe is going to be a potential invasion of Kharg Island or an invasion of the Iranian coastline in order to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump himself cited the Strait of Hormuz as why he struck Kharg Island, but Iran has said that not only has it not been obliterated militarily in Kharg Island, that its air defenses were operating just hours after these strikes, but that oil production indeed has not been hit either. Now, 90%, I believe, of Iranian oil goes through Kharg Island, so any attempt to invade and destroy it would be not just a major escalation, but a huge war crime meant to destroy the lives of Iranian people. But nonetheless, this all marks what is a critical turning point in the war. A KC-135, 2 of them were hit over Iraq. One was landed at the Ben Gurion airport in Israel. The other crashed over Western Iraq, and all of its crew members died, increasing the number of killed to 11 at that time. This was just 48 hours ago. But we have updated numbers from CENTCOM saying 13 U.S. service members now have been killed and 200 about have been injured in this war. This is likely a massive undercount. Iran is not trying to kill U.S. service members. It has been very meticulous and precise in its strikes on U.S. assets in the region. It has been hitting its radars. It has taken out all of the eyes of U.S. air defense systems. It has taken out key infrastructure of the U.S. military all over the region, including just shutting down the bases. Al Udeid, the headquarters of CENTCOM, is not operational at this time. So these strikes by Iran are precise, but nonetheless, these bases were not evacuated, and it is likely from sources, from friends of this show, Scott Ritter to Larry Johnson, it is likely that casualties are higher. So this is a major escalation. We are seeing Iran be very meticulous about how it is handling the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, now moving toward oil infrastructure in the region so that not only is the Strait of Hormuz closed for commercial oil and otherwise business, but the surrounding area, the ability to trade at all, is being completely and utterly shut down. And hitting the KC-135 oil tankers in Saudi Arabia marks not just an escalation in the oil war, but these refueling tankers are critical to ensuring that the U.S. Air Force, those who are coming off, these fighter jets that are coming off the aircraft carriers, are able to reach their destination. And Saudi Arabia has just exposed itself as a major participant in this war. You might remember that when this war began, and even before it, as the U.S. was preparing to strike Saudi Arabia, what did they say? They said that they were not going to allow their airspace to be used for attacks on Iran. But with these 5 tankers being hit, Iran has just exposed to the entire world that Saudi Arabia has been using their U.S. assets in the region, or I should say, they have been forced to use their assets in the region to strike Iran. But no more, because Iran will make sure that these bases are inoperable as they have in other parts of the Gulf. And these refueling tankers is a warning shot. Hitting them, destroying them is a warning shot that this will only continue to get worse. Now, Tehran, according to U.S. officials, they have been surprised. Financial Times reports that Iran's retaliation has shocked them, that Iran has fired 3,000 plus missiles and drones over this 2-week span at Gulf states and hundreds itself at Israel. A former U.S. official told the Financial Times, no one has done more with less than the Iranians. These Shahed drones, these cheap drones that only cost about tens of thousands of dollars, have hit radars, ports, bases, and oil facilities. They have shut them down. And we have UAE, we have Kuwait, we have Saudi Arabia and Qatar. They're all talking about either shutting down their oil production or lowering it dramatically. Saudi has announced lowering it. Qatar says they can't ship their gas right now because of the threat of Iranian missile strikes. And these U.S. officials are admitting that we didn't anticipate how they would react to this war. And they're also saying this to CNN, saying they didn't anticipate what would happen with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So all of this is coming as a big surprise to the United States and, of course, to Israel, which has been very mum about its bravado of late. You might have noticed that Benjamin Netanyahu is subject to massive rumors about not being present, maybe even being dead. Where is Netanyahu? Everyone's asking. People are scrutinizing recent speeches he has given as possible AI videos that do not demonstrate that he is around. We haven't seen Netanyahu comment on his X in a couple of days. And according to some, his son, who is very active on Yair Netanyahu, is very active on X. He hasn't commented in 5 days. So many are speculating that there is a possible issue for Netanyahu, that he may not be with us any longer. Of course, we can't confirm this, and we won't confirm this right now here, but nonetheless, where's Benjamin Netanyahu? Israel has been pounded by joint strikes by Iran and Hezbollah. What's so interesting is that while Iran and Hezbollah will sometimes announce how much they have fired, they fired about 100, 150 48 hours ago. And then of late, though, they have not been reporting how many missiles are getting through. But the IRGC has stated that 50% of all of their missiles at Israel now are hitting their targets. And that means, everyone, that Israel is being bludgeoned, that they are being pummeled by ballistic missiles, no matter how much they censor the damage on the ground. You may recall that Israel actually doesn't allow their so-called citizens to film the missile strikes. We've seen videos across social media of people trying and then being turned away by Israeli security officials. And we also know that Israel has up to a 5-year prison sentence for those trying to record. And we also know, mind you, that there are many who will listen to these directives. Why? Because 80% of Israel supports this war of aggression on Iran. They want to see Iran topple. They want to see the last national sovereign nation, the last sovereign nation in the region able to support the resistance, support Palestine, support Hezbollah, support national liberation movements across the region. They want to see it destroyed because they want greater Israel. They want unfettered dominance in the region. So we know that there are many who will actually just let this happen, and they will follow diktats of the of the Israeli government. Now, it's about to get a lot worse. The refueling tankers being hit over Iraq a couple days ago, and then in recent days in Saudi Arabia, that really hurts militarily. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz closure really hurts militarily. But there are two major moves that Iran and its allies have announced that are about to make the situation even worse. So Iran has said to CNN through an Iranian official that they are going to allow a limited number of oil tankers pass through the Strait of Hormuz on a condition that will shock you. And that is that if the cargo is traded, at the end of the day, once it is traded for compensation, it has to be compensated in Chinese yuan. So that means that Iran is not just trying to strangle the U.S. economically and the entire world that follows it as vassals economically through oil price increases, but it is trying to get to, and it is working toward getting to, the heart of the U.S.-dominated financial system itself, the petrodollar. So this is a major move that, if it is to occur, will send the U.S. panicking to a degree we have not seen in any war in history, and arguably that's already happening. Arguably that's already happening. With moves toward Kharg Island, the Trump administration is signaling that it is willing to destroy the entire oil market, the entire oil economy at the heart of U.S. financial dominated capitalism, that is willing to destroy all of this in order to meet its so-called objectives in Iran, which we've gone over in this program, have already failed. They have not met their objectives, and they're not going to meet their objectives. Regime change, they're not going to meet that objective. Getting rid of Iran's ballistic missile systems, they're not going to meet that objective. Getting rid of Iran's nuclear program, they're not going to meet that objective. Obliterating Iran, I don't know what other fantasy the Trump administration has and Israel has, but they haven't met those objectives, and they're not going to. You may have seen during Quds Day, Al-Quds Day in Iran, founded in 1979 in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Palestinian Liberation Movement and Palestine in general. It's been happening every single year, massive rallies in Iran. You may have seen Abbas Araghchi, you might have seen Mossad Perzeshkian, you might have seen Ali Larijani, these top Iranian officials, from the president, the National Security Council secretary, and of course the foreign minister. They were there without a security detail. They were walking the streets. And what did Ali Larijani say? Hegseth had called Iranian officials rats. He said that they were rats hiding at the moment underground in bunkers. They're not hiding in bunkers. But Ali Larijani, the secretary of the National Security Council in Iran, what did he say? He said, we're out here with the people. Where are your leaders on Epstein Island? I mean, this is the level of cope. This is the level of humiliation. This is the level of trolling that is really impacting the United States empire at this time. The oligarchs, the elites, they are absolutely losing it, because not only is Iran hitting them militarily very hard, that U.S. bases, every Western mainstream media outlet has had to acknowledge, are destroyed. So not only is this happening, but you also have Iran now hitting at the economy. And when the economy crashes, they're already saying, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, that this is worse than the 1970s oil crisis. And it's just been days. What happens in weeks? The Trump administration says this could go on for weeks. They said that they're going to do this as long as it takes. Donald Trump has said, whenever in my mind I want to end this war, it'll end. Well, 1 week, 2 weeks, how long can the United States really wait before the oil markets come crashing down? And there are reports that oil facilities now in the UAE, that now we see Bahrain firing ballistic missiles at Iran. What's going to happen now to Bahrain, which has already had its oil facilities hit? They're going to be hit more. And the Naval Fifth Fleet base there is going to be hit more. So this is getting out of control. This is getting out of control. And the United States cannot handle this. And now I just want to give you the report on what Iran said about the Kharg Island strike. Because, mind you, this is a prelude to a possible invasion of Iran. These 5,000 Marines that are coming, it can take about 2 weeks to get from Japan to the Middle East. They said that they heard 15 explosions on Kharg Island, that they did attempt to damage military fortifications, the naval base, the airport control tower, the helicopter hangar there. They also indicate thick smoke rising from that island, but they said no oil infrastructure was confirmed, so they aligned with U.S. reports there, and they warned any attacks on any infrastructure would lead to the destruction of all oil and gas facilities in the region, affecting U.S. and allied interests. Now, mind you, Donald Trump has also threatened to destroy all of Iran's electrical grid and turn the lights out of Iran altogether. And Ali Larijani, the Secretary of the National Security Council in Iran, said that they would do the same to the Gulf and effectively end the U.S.'s military presence there by default. So Trump has claimed that he struck all military targets, but that defenses were reactivated within or after an hour of the attack. And he said destruction of Iran's missile capabilities have occurred as well, but the 48th round of Operation True Promise 4 went off without a hitch, and we see the results now all over Tel Aviv, central Israel. Haifa also is being pounded. We see a U.S. tanker now burning off the coast of the UAE, and that oil has not been interrupted on Kharg Island. So a lot of this feels like bravado. A lot of this feels like an attempt to build a case for victory. But if the U.S. invades Kharg Island, after what Iran has demonstrated, what stops these Marines who will be sent into a mountainous slaughter? What stops Iran from absolutely devastating not just the Marines that are going to be heading there, but to intensify their attacks on U.S. assets in the region again? Because remember, regardless of how many missiles we think Iran has right now, which Israel says about 2,500 before the war started, probably a low estimate. High estimates go up to 100,000+ to more than this, given that there's demonstrative proof now that the launchers that Israel said they destroyed during the 12-day war likely weren't the case. And we know that the U.S. has been lying from the beginning of this, and Israel too, because they're hitting decoys that Iran has set up, some say with Chinese support, allowing Iran to purchase inflatable decoys. And of course, we've seen the thermal paint that they have put on the ground to mimic helicopters and air power, fighter jets, etc., that have been hit. And CENTCOM says, we did it, we won. But the truth is that Iran's military capabilities are well intact, especially their drone program, which I believe these estimates are in the hundreds of thousands. The low estimate by CNN and others have said 80,000. But 80,000 is a lot, because all it's taken is 1, 2, 3 fired at these assets to render them inoperable. Drones have taken out these radars in the UAE, in Jordan. This is a major crisis for the United States at this time in Israel. They are trapped. Iran didn't even have to lay this trap because they knew that the United States and Israel were going to attack. How quickly did Iran respond once the missiles hit the school in Iran, killing those 170+ school children, the young girls, the Manab school in Manab? Really quick, within hours. So they were ready. And now, lastly, I wanted to say that in addition to de-dollarizing the world economy through the enforcement of Chinese yuan being used for oil tanker compensation if allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran said they will if you use Chinese yuan. But also, we have not talked about Ansar Allah, the Houthis, which in recent hours just said they will enter the war imminently. And what will they do? Well, we already have tanker activity moving to the Red Sea. When oil prices get above 120, 150, closing on 200, I believe, it is my understanding from what I'm hearing from Ansar Allah in Yemen and the fact that they have not come into the war, they're going to close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Red Sea when the moment is right. This is a miscalculation by the United States. Huge. The U.S. empire took a huge miscalculation. Israel was already decimated by Yemen's successful campaign to close the Red Sea from 2023 to 2024, before the ceasefire, through 2024. Eilat port, gone. We don't hear about activity from Eilat. Iran doesn't even have to hit it. It's gone. It was gone before the war. Now we are seeing what will happen when Yemen, Ansar Allah, the Houthis, close the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb with the Strait of Hormuz closed. You think the oil crisis is bad now, Wall Street Journal? Now financial oil tycoons, analysts, you haven't seen nothing yet. And you're underestimating that because they're not even taking that into account. This is what always happens. You have the Western mainstream media all over talking to their talking heads and the think tanks everywhere. They're saying, oh, well, Ansar Allah hasn't entered and they don't want to. Obviously, it's been a couple days. They don't want to. No, they're going to enter. And when they do, it's going to be at a time where it acts as the further, just deepening of a massive wound that is opening up. And so Iran has fired in the last couple of days hundreds of missiles at U.S. assets, but also in conjunction with Hezbollah at Israel. The casualties are mounting. Donald Trump and his administration is getting more desperate to make it seem like it is winning this war. Right? So it's about to make a fundamental mistake. They're not going to learn from what Iran just did to the refueling tankers in Saudi Arabia. No, they're going to send these Marines likely to Kharg Island or likely to the Iranian coastline. They're going to try to open the Strait of Hormuz by force. And we're going to see something we have not seen in modern, really in U.S. military and imperial history ever, which is not just the defeat at the hands of guerrillas, the people, the masses, which we've seen in Vietnam, in Korea. We've seen this over and over again, right? They didn't have technology that could match the U.S. military, but nonetheless, they were able to, after years, to destroy U.S. war efforts. But this time around, Iran has military capabilities. Even just the drones alone will make any kind of attempt by U.S. warships trying to deploy Marines via whatever it is, whatever means they are going to try to, a raid on the coast or what have you. They're going to ensure that there's going to be massive casualties. And then when those massive casualties hit, what do you think is going to happen to the oil markets and the economy? What do you think is going to happen to popular sentiment in the United States? And what do you think is going to happen to the Trump administration? It's all looking like a big blunder, because it is. Because it is. Because this was never a war the U.S. could win. And why? Because I've been saying it here on this program. People have laughed. Danny, why do you say Hezbollah is strong or any kind of factor? Look at, they've been obliterated by Israel. They've been obliterated by the empire. What? Iran's weak. Operation True Promise 1, 2, 3. Oh my God. Operation 1 and 2 so weak. 3 didn't really do anything. Did some damage, but it didn't really stop anything. Right? Over and over and over again, I was told, nah, these forces, the resistance, they're nothing. They're dead. Right? Because they couldn't stop the genocide in Gaza. Yes. They couldn't stop U.S. military presence or Israel from existing. Yes. There is still the capacity of the U.S. empire to do massive damage. But that damage doesn't change the arc of history right now. And the arc of history is that the U.S. empire is in decline. It is in desperate decline. It is in chaos and crisis. It has an economic, political, and military system that cannot sustain itself at this time, that it is overstretched, and now it is outmatched. Because the so-called enemies now, I've been saying this on my program, I'll say it here again, the so-called enemies of the United States, which aren't enemies to us or the people of the United States. To me, you, whoever's watching this, they're not, right? They're not your enemies. Really, nobody should be your enemy. Because like other countries in the world, normal countries in the world, we should be talking and trading with each other, living in cooperation and building a better world, addressing real problems, right? But no, the US, because it's an empire, because it's built on profits for the few at the expense of the many, because of the military-industrial complex, the banks, the oil tycoons, everybody, all of these oligarchs, these forces, they just want to take everything. So they need to destroy Iran because Iran doesn't jibe with that. They don't want that. But Iran, Russia, China, these countries, forget about it. The US cannot win a conventional war, unconventional war, an asymmetric war. They can't even win a nuclear war. They won't win a nuclear war. They won't. Why? Because nobody wins a nuclear war. So no victory is available to the United States at this time. That is the state of the empire. So that is what's happening right now. Iran has the initiative. Iran has seized the initiative. Iran has the momentum. Iran is dictating terms. Iran has demands that no aggression will ever happen to it again, and it's internationally guaranteed. And they're going to continue to hit US bases, Israel, until they get it. They're going to escalate their targets. They're going to hit not only where US personnel are, but every single energy infrastructure that is there in the region is going to be hit. Why? Not because they want to see people with the lights out, or they don't even want to destroy the global economy, but they know it's the leverage that they have so that this eventually stops. The US can't defeat that, everybody. The US cannot defeat that. And if the US tries to defeat that, they will be defeated. And that's what's happening right now. They will be defeated. Oh yeah? Israel too? Defeated. Already defeated. Where's Netanyahu? Show yourself. But no. This is the situation that we're in. And you're going to continue to see reports from me as I'm off from live streaming for a couple days as I'm away from my usual location. I'll be back next week, but you'll get updates from me like this, possible interviews pre-recorded. But everybody hit the like button if you like what you heard. Subscribe if you haven't. Video description is where you can support the channel. And I'll be back again soon.